Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs podcast, but lately largely just a baseball playoffs podcast, which unfortunately those two things mutually exclusive this year. My name is Kevin McCaffrey, and I'm here with Adam Mamawala. What up, Adam?
How you doing?
I'm all right. It's we're recording this just before, and this episode's coming out just before Game 7 of the World Series. So this is the last actual baseball season.
Yeah, this is Wednesday morning, and I'm actually kind of glad we were going to record yesterday, and I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't, because now we can talk about the wildness of last night's game. And just so you guys know, I always like to do this because you only get to listen to us. Kevin had a Cubs hat on, facing the right direction, and then just before we started talking, he was like, "I'm going Griffey in the home run derby," and he looks great.
Thank you so much. A twist at the end. I thought
we actually both look tired.
Yeah, I think so. We both look tired, but pretty good as far as baseball podcast spheres go. We're doing all right. Yeah, I thought you were gonna call me out for disrespecting the game like Alex Bregman. People. I saw you. You did not love the carry the bat to first base.
I didn't. Yeah, I don't know if that was on brand for our Twitter account. I like bat flips, and I don't mind pimping home runs, but that to me was a little much.
I liked it, but I understand, because I sort of had the my surprising old school beef opinion a few years ago when Jose Bautista homered and stood there and then threw the bat. Yeah. I remember talking to my friend, TV producer and big Mets fan, Brock Mahan, who maybe we'll have on the podcast sometime, and he was very shocked that I didn't like that I thought Batista was being an asshole about it. So I get it. Mm-hmm. But, who also agreed with you? Mike Napoli? Remember?
Yeah.
Party at Napoli's house. Napoli just tweeted, "Bregman's a douche." And that was it. I was like, damn, Napoli. You were, I feel
like he watched some home runs.
Oh, and he was just
he used to hit bombs.
Yeah, he hit bombs, and he was also kind of like a dirtbag, and I mean that not in like a bad way, but
in an endearing way.
Yeah, but apparently, so you weren't alone in having beef with it. I was cool with it, but so yes, my turnaround.
And I loved Soto being petty and carrying the bat to first base also.
Oh, hell yeah!
I thought if Bregman hit another home run, he was going to carry the bat to second base, and then it would just never end.
Yeah, do the Pedro Serrano homering in the last game in Major League One, where he just literally takes the bat all the way around the bases with him.
Frankly, it was a nice homage to the game of cricket. Because, when my Indian dad tried to teach me the rules of cricket, the only thing that I could remember is you're supposed to hold on to the bat, because every time I would hit the ball and then drop it. So in cricket, you run with the paddle or the bat or whatever it's called.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I don't understand the rules of cricket, if you were going to ask that.
I was going to ask that. Cricket and rugby are two sports where it's every couple of years, I'm like, let me see if I can figure this out. And I have not.
He's explained it to me 40 times, and I can't figure it out. I know that they don't use gloves. A lot of people break their fingers constantly because it's like basically like picture like Giancarlo hitting a lacrosse ball at you and trying to catch that with your hands.
It seems like gloves are a great idea.
Right. We have gloves. Why not?
Figured it out. It's fun.
By the way, you were talking about the Batista thing. My favorite thing about that bat flip was that was the same year. That was 2015, so that was the same year as the Schwarber scoreboard home run. Yeah. And obviously that ball was still on the scoreboard. And my favorite meme from that was someone tweeting like, "Oh my God, I just found Jose Bautista's bat," and someone had photoshopped his bat on top of the scoreboard next to Schwarber's home run.
That's pretty fun. That's good. I dig that meme. Now we can Photoshop Alex Bregman just with his bat in a bunch of weird places that you're not supposed to have a bat.
I think the reason that it bothered me is that this has been like a progression this series of Bregman getting douchier. Like, not that these aren't all enormous home runs, because they absolutely are. And I've always been a Bregman guy, but I feel like he's really ratcheted up the cockiness in this series. And maybe I just don't watch him as much as I thought I did, but I don't know, something about his personality is starting to rub me the wrong way. And perhaps it's the juxtaposition with someone like Jose Altuve, who is so humble that he doesn't even want his jersey being taken off when he walks off in ALCS.
Sure. Altuve is possibly my favorite non-Cub, period. Like Jose Altuve, Mookie Betts, and I love Max Scherzer, so a couple of these guys are going tonight too.
Yeah.
Bregman would be on my all non-Cubs team. I love Bregman. I'm all in on Alex Bregman overall. But last night was a crazy game, and it seemed like that Bregman homer put him up 2-1, but 2-1 felt huge at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because Verlander usually, if you get to him, you get to him in the first inning. So he gave up that 1 run. It felt like Washington had great momentum there, and then giving up the 2 right away.
Right. And the Gurriel ball right after Bregman would have been gone if he had hit it about 5 feet to the left. That was in that weird kind of well in left center.
Yeah, that weird little cutout thing. That left field wall is right there. Like watching.
Well, yeah, because Bregman's shot looked like a bomb. When they showed the Statcast, it was 355 feet. That would be into the basket at Wrigley.
Right. Kind of to make a comp to our team, kind of the Javi Baez against the Giants move, where he hit it into the basket but posed like it was 80 feet beyond the wall.
But in Javi's defense, that would have been way back in the bleachers or onto Waveland had the wind not been blowing straight in on a 40-degree night.
Oh, for sure. Also in Javi's defense, it went out. So he's still right, but yeah, just both posing, and then you look at it afterwards, it's like, oh, that's.
Well, I remember you and I watching that game together, and when they cut to that shot of the ball in the air, I'm picturing where it's going to go, and then when it lands directly in the basket, even the camera guy I think was a little surprised because they quickly pan down and just show Pagan underneath it.
Totally, yeah. It was the quick jerk, and in the crowd reaction and Javi's reaction, it seemed like everyone thought it was way gone. But
speaking of Bregman having fun, I've got another T-shirt idea. I don't even know what number this is for me, but I've just been, So it's a Tim Tebow baseball shirt, right? You with me so far? So it's Tebow playing minor league baseball, and on the back it says "Let the kids pray."
That's pretty good.
Come on.
Come on! You're now branching into other markets. I feel like a lot of our T-shirts would have gone to one kind of consumer, and now this is bringing in the Christian right.
Well, Christians buy T-shirts too, Kevin. I'm like the Michael Jordan of Republicans buy sneakers.
Yep, totally. Do they though?
I don't know. It's also crazy. So, obviously a lot has changed since the last time that we spoke. And after the first 2 games, it looked like the Nationals were just going to team of destiny their way to a sweep. Then, really, I think the highlight of the weekend for Nationals fans in D.C. was booing Trump, which I'm on board for. But, they had nothing to cheer for that series.
No, yeah, it was too bad. I was also surprised that they did boo Trump, and I know you talked about this a little more on the podcast with Ken Schultz. Ken Schultz's new podcast at Outsports, which is a fun one to check out. We both guested on it, but yeah, the Nats fans really came together as one and managed to make Trump sad, and you don't see that happen a lot because he lives in a world where he doesn't let reality in, and even he couldn't deny that he was getting his ass booed, which is in Washington and at a World Series game where the prices are sky high. So it's you would think it's a lot of really wealthy people who are the people that guy helps most. So I was very impressed that they booed like that, but there was no real as you said, there was not a lot of baseball to cheer.
There was a great Onion headline that was it showed Trump looking sad, and then it said something along the lines of Donald Trump disappointed that Nationals fans boo Melania. He still can't acknowledge that it was actually towards him.
That's pretty solid. Yeah.
But anyway, no more. Enough politics. It was. They didn't lead, I don't think, in a game. They scored 3 runs total over the weekend. Yeah. And now we're in a position where the road team has won all 6 games. No World Series has ever ended with the road team winning all of their road games. Yeah. And also, the interesting thing that I read, somebody tweeted yesterday that the last time a home team won the World Series was 2013.
The last time with the home.
The last time any team won the World Series at home was the Red Sox in 2013, because in 2014 the Giants won in Kansas City. Right. 2015 the Royals won in New York, Cubs won in Cleveland. Astros won in L.A., Red Sox won in L.A.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, I had not realized.
Which seems like statistically improbable.
Yeah, well, because it has to be statistically improbable, because usually you would think the best team has home field advantage, and that's slightly more games there, giving you more of a chance to clinch. Typically, if I have no rooting interest, I like seeing the home team win, because it's just a more fun celebration to watch.
Yeah, this has to be the series in which the most people have spent the most money to be disappointed.
I respect that. That seems very 2019 to me. Yeah, that seems very fitting. And I hope that's how we're both rooting for the Nationals, so I hope that's how it closes out tonight. And this pod is going to drop only a couple out, several hours before the game goes, so it'll be outdated very quickly. But Scherzer versus Greinke is super interesting. I just really hope Scherzer is anything resembling healthy. Yeah.
And you really had to feel for him not being able to go on Sunday because, I don't think anyone in the world has ever questioned his toughness and desire to be on the mound. So you had to know that it was pretty bad for him to not be able to appear in that game. But it is kind of one of those weird things where that becomes an advantage by virtue of the fact that they've now gotten to a Game 7. Because let's say he had pitched on Sunday and they still get dominated by Cole. Well, now you've just used Scherzer and you're not going to have him for Game 7. You're going to probably be starting Anibal Sanchez. So this is what we wanted, though. It's going to be chaotic, probably, and possibly the best collection of pitchers in one game. I think it would probably have to go extras to see Strasburg the same way that like Arrieta started warming up in Game 7. Like he pitched 105, 110 pitches last night. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Cole throw a couple innings. It's hard to even imagine Scherzer or Greinke going beyond like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think you almost have to expect to see Garrett Cole in this game, and then the lesser starters from Washington, like you're probably going to see Anibal Sanchez, right? You're gonna he's going to be available to go as well. Patrick Corbin, you're surely going to see. He'll come in to face probably Yordan Alvarez or Michael Brantley at some point. It's going to be an exciting bunch of pitchers going, and I just really hope Scherzer is healthy. I didn't like seeing, after he had what must have been serious discomfort with the back and neck spasms, him warming up last night before he has to start today. I didn't love seeing that. I mean, I don't know how much that would have.
Why is that? Just like, why use any extra effort?
Yeah, kind of. It seems like, I understand it's an elimination game yesterday, too, so you have to have everybody ready to go. But I would have been like, well, we're going to need Scherzer for 7 if there's 7 anyway. So I would like to. And sort of same reason why I would have liked to see them just let Strasburg finish it out and not throw Doolittle out there.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Because it seemed to me that, like, you're not going to see Strasburg again this series anyway, so you might as well just leave him out there.
Yeah, and it wasn't an insane number of pitches, and I thought
it was like 110 or something like that.
Yeah, and Verlander threw even less. So Verlander, I could absolutely see coming out again today on no day's rest. If necessary, even if it's for one hitter or like you said, if it goes to extras or something. But yeah, I really would like to see Max Scherzer go out there and pitch a good game, no matter what else happens.
Yeah. Now, what were your thoughts on the big controversy?
Oh, the first base play. I mean, I feel like I can't remember the last time I saw this many players tweet publicly about how much they hated a call. Our own Kyle Schwarber tweeted about it. Jake Arrieta, our formerly owned Jake Arrieta.
What did Jake say about it? I saw Schwarber's tweet about like why don't we use the kind of like softball bases where there's two bases. But what did Arrieta say?
Let's see. I'll call it up. Jake Arrieta said, that is an absolutely awful call. What are we doing? And then his next tweet right after that was the panic in the review room right now. I feel like everyone else did. I saw it and I was shocked at the call in the moment that they were sending him back. And then seeing the replay, I felt like it was even dumber. Now, it's not a reviewable play as part of the thing, which is weird that they went to that.
I think it's going to be a reviewable play next year.
I think so. I think it's the equivalent of the like pass interference thing.
I was just thinking that. Like if the Astros win that game last night, I think it would have had the same feel as like the Saints being denied the Super Bowl.
Right, totally. So it's good that friggin' monster Anthony Rendon came up. That guy's fucking good, dude.
Yeah.
He is good, so good, and playing so well at the most important time. World Series MVP, you would think has to be him or Strasburg, unless it goes to unless Houston wins. Then
if Houston wins, probably Bregman, I would think. Or
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess Bregman.
Yeah, you would. You would think probably. But yeah, I thought it was a bad call in the moment, and it was bad. I mean, when Trey Turner lands square in the middle of the bag, running through the bag, it's like you almost physically can't be illegal at that point. You know?
Well, my initial inclination was that it was a bad call, and also this is not even talking about how many egregiously bad ball and strike calls there have been in this series. Like, because it's one thing to be like, okay, well, a ball that's 2 inches off the outside is going to be a strike today, and you call it consistently the whole game. I still don't agree with that, but at least it's consistent. And I mean, when you look at Game 5 on Sunday, the ball pitched to Robles keeps getting screwed this whole series. Yeah. That ball was clearly outside. It was probably high. And last night, you have the typical arrogant umpire thing where he gets called out on a check swing by the home plate umpire without even asking the first base umpire, and he didn't go around. And they haven't really even been calling check swings most of the series. I just don't understand it. But I talked to my friend Adam, who is he has umpired a lot before. His dad was like an umpire for a job. And he didn't appreciate this comment, but I told him, I was like, you defend umpires the way that like people whose parents are cops defend cops. You're like, it's a hard job. You don't understand how difficult. And he didn't feel that was a fair representation. But sure. His feeling was it was called the correct way, whether you want to think it's unfair or not in the spirit of like how the play should have ended up. You're allowed to feel that way, but it is the correct call in terms of how the rules are written. Because if you're running inside the baseline the entire time and you end up interfering with the first baseman, all that other stuff goes out the window. It doesn't matter that the first baseman probably should have done a better job of coming to get the ball. It doesn't matter that you were barely inside the line. It's one of those things where if you don't enforce it that way, what's to stop somebody from running 3 feet inside the line? That was his argument.
Right. I get that. But also I think that sort of defense from umpires is not terribly helpful for how people feel about umpires, because it's like, yeah, all this stuff is correct, but that is not how it's called 95% of the time.
Right. And to me, it's like, you better be damn sure that that's what happened if you're calling it. Like that's like akin to like calling a free throw lane violation in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Like it's just not something that's called.
100%. It's not called normally. So you can say it's to the letter of the law, but then you shouldn't be able to enforce it at a time like that when you never enforce it otherwise. Like, last time I saw it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's just not called.
Well, one thing that he pointed out to me was that, like, a lot of people are taking screenshots and showing other videos of like, oh, look at this person running inside the line. Look at this person. The whole point of the rule is that it's not called unless there's interference. Sure. So you can run inside the baseline, and if nothing happens, you're not going to be called out because you ran inside or in fair territory. So I do get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless of, first of all, then I think the rule needs to be revisited if that really is how the rule is supposed to be enforced. And I think Major League Baseball is extremely lucky that the Nationals won that game, because I can guarantee you, regardless of whether or not it was enforced properly, they were going to be getting a lot of shit. And I think they still will. You saw Trey Turner, the hot mics picked up him like shitting on Joe Torre, and it was kind of great. Did you?
Oh, I didn't hear that. What did he say?
So they cut to, it was kind of similar to when we got annoyed with Adrian Gonzalez in 2016. Like, you can clearly hear him like complaining about a replay in the dugout, but they showed Turner, and he's just saying, like, when they're reviewing it, which I guess they were reviewing whether or not it could be protested, which is also confusing to me, because then after that review of something that's not reviewable, they pointed at Turner and signaled out again. So then what were they reviewing? But anyway, the whole thing is fucking crazy.
Turner's out 3 times.
Turner, you hear Turner saying to whoever he was next to, like, why don't you just ask Joe Torre? He's sitting right there. And he was like, look at him. He's just sitting there with his head down. He's not even looking at anybody because he's too embarrassed. Like, he was just going after Torre.
And then Torre came out and did what he does. And he's like, the call was correct. I saw Torre say that afterwards. And I think that's another thing where it's just like, I don't know. It's related to, even if it's not exactly the unaccountability of umpires, which is one of my number one biggest problem with umpires. They never have to face the press. They never admit fault. Somehow they're like the Pope. They're infallible somehow. But like when everyone else knows you fucked up and you won't give an inch on it, I don't think it's helpful. And that's
did you see the play on Sunday where there was a ball basically right down the middle that wasn't called a strike? And when was it Jan Gomes or who was it who popped up? And then the umpire was like, "Oh, you got up too fast. I couldn't see it."
Yes, right.
Like, so it's my fault.
Yeah, I think didn't Gomes say like my bad or something? It's
no. He was annoyed. Gomes was like, "So it's my fault." Cool.
Gotcha. Yes, right.
It was more like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" It's like I popped up because the ball is right down the middle.
Yeah, because 45,000 people saw it.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a case of like, obviously we all remember Sam Holbrook as the home plate umpire in Game 7 of Cubs Indians, and he missed a call that would have been strike 3 for Hendricks. Yep. But at least in that case, it was a situation where Hendricks missed his spot, and it was one of those like, it wasn't like framed the right way. So at least you understand that maybe within his line of vision, it didn't look as good as it was. But I don't. The human element is not sexy. I don't understand this glorification of like, it's the human. Like, if we have the ability to get things right, you should always want to get things right.
I don't think it's weird. And Jack Flaherty had a real bug up his ass on Twitter about it, talking shit to, was it Jeff Passan, I think?
Yeah.
Where he was like, Passan was basically saying what we're saying, where it's like I don't understand the upside of the human element here, and he's like, well, you can't because you can't play baseball. That's why you write. And it's like, yeah, you fucking idiot. People have different jobs. He's writing about baseball. Obviously, Jack Flaherty can't write. Check out the guy's Twitter. It sucks. But he can throw hard and throws a slider. Great. I don't think it's edgy to be like strikes should be strikes.
Right.
And there, like you said, there are borderline cases even within the human element that I do understand more. But like, you can't be blowing that kind of a pitch. You just can't at this level.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes without saying that the play last night with the interference, like, that's a nightmare scenario for the umpires. Like, they, regardless of the Joe Wests of the world who want to involve themselves in the game, right, most umpires, I think, would prefer to not be noticed.
Yeah, and I have a little more sympathy about that play because it does happen. It does happen really quick, and I understand it can look more chaotic. They don't have the and the ball, like the fact that the glove came off the Gurriel's hand, right. I think in fast motion, it does look more like interference. And then you slow down, and to me, it doesn't. But
the point that my friend was making was like, okay, so let's say that's not called, and there's runners on second and third. Well, the Astros are going to be pissed about it because they will think that there was interference. So, like, no matter what, somebody's going to be upset in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's just like, I think everyone would be like, oh, well, the Astros are mad, but the call is probably right. You know what I mean? Like, the consensus is on the fact that is not interference. And like, all we need to know about that is, I think, how many baseball players were saying it. Right. Including Arrieta, who's a pitcher, who you would think would be, if anything, on the side of getting
and I'm not a Smoltz guy, but I give him credit for when there are balls that are strikes that have been called ball, or rather, basically calls that go against the pitcher. He's been the first one to be like, yeah, this is not right.
Yeah.
Let's do real quick. Give me your prediction for tonight. Then I'm going to do a hot ad read, and then we can talk a little David Ross stuff.
I think weirdly, it's going to be like I predicted before the beginning of this series that Game 7 could see the greatest collection of pitchers ever in a single World Series game. I think that might happen, and I still think both teams are scoring more than 5 runs because I think just the how good these lineups are. B, how taxed all these pitchers have been. And, with that short left field and pretty short down the right field line, too. I think it's going to be a relatively high-scoring game with a ton of pitchers in it. I'm rooting for Washington, but Houston's better.
But what if Altuve walks it off again?
That would, if Houston's going to win, let's do that.
Yeah.
If Houston must win, let's have Altuve walk it off. That'd be wonderful.
Or let's have Osuna blow the save and blow the World Series.
Please, that
would be just
let's have. Oh, I want Osuna to blow it by walking in Juan Soto, who grabs his nuts so hard he just lifts himself all the way to first base, taking the ball. And then all the Cardinals watching, Jack Flaherty will implode on Twitter, of course, and probably just combust in real life. So, yeah, Osuna walking in the winning run, and then Doolittle shutting it down as well.
Or we could have a Michael Martinez situation where there's a little dribbler hit to the third baseman, and as Trey Turner is running to first, Joe Torre comes out of the stands and trips him.
I'm into. That's straight up classic wrestling heel move. Yeah, doing a run in.
All right, let's do. I'm gonna change up this ad read because I got some fun stuff. So once again, we're sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. Get a load of this. Thrive Fantasy has over $5,000 in prizes up for grabs for NFL Sunday. Enter our code AWAYGAMES when you sign up for an instant $10 bonus on your first deposit of $10 or more. Make a lot of fun NFL bets. Don't bet on the Bears, for the love of God. Make some NBA bets. Make some damn Game 7 bets. That could be fun. Yeah. There's got to be some fun. I'm not looking at it right now, but there's got to be some crazy over-unders for tonight's game. How many, over-under hits for Altuve, over-under innings pitched or strikeouts for Scherzer and Greinke. There's going to be a lot of fun prop bets. So check out Thrive Fantasy. We'll post the link as always. And once again, use promo code AWAYGAMES, all one word, when you sign up for an instant $10 bonus on your first deposit of $10 more. And also, we haven't mentioned this, but follow us at AwayGamesPod on Twitter and Instagram, awaygamespodcast@gmail.com. That's that.
Yeah. All right. Should we get into anything else you want to say about World Series stuff, or get into
No, man. I mean, it's been a great World Series, and it's been fun to watch, and I am sad that today is the last day that we get to watch a meaningful baseball game until next April. But
yeah,
it is what it is. The that famous Bart Giamatti quote is it's very apt. I think I always think of that this time of year. Like, just when you need baseball the most, it leaves you.
Yeah, that poem that he.
Yeah, I love it.
I stopped listening to the Baseball Tonight podcast, which I listen to every day for a couple of years.
Torture yourself?
And then I just hate so much of the personalities on it. And they get some good people on there too, but the consistent ones really drove me nuts. But one good thing they do is they play that Giamatti poem at the end of every year.
I like it.
Yeah, it's great. But I am excited to get to the off season.
Yes.
I am. That excites me as a Cubs fan. It's a bummer that as Cub fans, that's what we have to be excited about, is the offseason. But we're getting there. And I guess the big development over the past week was David Ross named manager. And I guess we haven't done a podcast since he was named manager.
No, yeah, because the last pod we did was a lot of like, is it going to be Ross or Espada sort of talk. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of share a level of excitement here. I don't know that I was like as all in on Ross as maybe you were, but having now, watched it happen and listening to his press conference, I'm excited. And he's like, there's a real like calmness and determination about him that I'm sensing that makes me excited to see what he can do.
Yes, and it was I was in one of the things that struck me as the best was about how much he seems to want the job, which seems obvious, right? But that was a question I had a little bit. He had a comfortable, he had a comfortable life with his ESPN gig and with his, nebulous front office gig, whatever the fuck that was.
It's one of those keep him on the payroll jobs, but.
Exactly. How can we get some keep us on the payroll jobs?
Seriously,
that seems like a nice job.
I don't know what the equivalent would be in comedy, but we got to figure it out.
Yeah, I think it's just like waiting tables at a comedy.
Yeah, just be a doorman at the comedy store.
Yeah, I did think it was. I enjoyed the press conference. I enjoyed hearing about them. I enjoyed what Theo saying that David Ross dominated the second interview. It seems like the first interview, I read basically a rundown of the David Ross interviews on The Athletic. The Athletic did a good job covering that, and it seems like the first interview was sort of a welcome one and a little more like breezy. And then the second one, apparently Theo sent this extremely detailed email to David Ross, like this super long one saying everything that he wanted to see from him. Which
included, like a mock press conference, a mock spring training speech, and apparently he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, in advanced scouting single team, they were like, this is the team. Basically act like we're going into a series against this team, and we haven't been playing well lately. We have not been out preparing the other teams. Tell us what you're looking for going into the series. So it was like
Ross was like, I'm not going to have Almora hit leadoff, and they were like, you're hired.
Yeah, exactly. And Espada was like, damn it, I fucked up that one thing. And they said both Ross and Espada got standing ovations in the after their speeches. So I know like people were making fun of the idea that like David Ross won with a spring training speech, but it seems like both spring training speeches were good. The separator was just the leadership intangibles that David Ross supposedly.
Yep. He knocked it out of the park like it was a pitch from Andrew Miller.
Hell yeah. Right over the fence, and after he was concussed, or possibly.
Oh my God. But yeah, I listened to the whole press conference, and I was encouraged about a lot of things, not the least of which was Ross taking in stride kind of a rude question. And he's going to have to get used to that, because I don't know which reporter it was, but basically the question was framed in such a way of like, you were a backup most of your career, and so nobody really cared about what you had to say, but now people are really going to care about what you have to say. How are you going to adjust to that? Which is a little bit of a like shady question.
I didn't see that. Yeah. And he just...
I don't think it was meant to be disrespectful, but the way it came off was like, you spent most of your career playing behind someone, so what you said about, the team was not like valued as much, but now people are going to want to know. And his response was very good. It was like, sure, I was a backup, but, when you play in big markets like Chicago or Boston, people want to know what you have to say. And I'm lucky that I was included in those conversations and was part of the, part of the process of game planning. And like, it just, everything that was thrown his way, he seemed to have an answer for that didn't seem canned and seemed like he was in the moment and engaged. And like, his whole energy was like, let's fucking get going.
Mm-hmm. He seems fired up, and that is a thing that I think it seems like people have forgotten over the past couple years, why David Ross weirdly got to be a backup catcher with such a high profile, and it was because of the leadership stuff. It's not made up. The guy spent a decade and a half in the major leagues as a catcher. Theo talks about how Ross was the third catcher in Boston at one point. And almost immediately he was leading the meetings in terms of preparation and like confidently speaking up. And to the reporter's question that you mentioned, where no one cared what you had to say when you're a backup catcher. In terms of the public, but you know what matters more if you're a manager? It seems like everyone inside the clubhouse always cared what David Ross had to say, at least in the second half of his career. Mm-hmm. And that's really more what managing is. Obviously, like no one's going to be better than Joe Maddon at talking to the press. He's still the most fun guy addressing the press, the best at, weaving stories, being in the moment and being honest, I think. And I think David Ross will get better that way, too. But yeah, there is an edge to that guy, and I think people forget that.
And he addressed that as well, which is that he said, I know that there's this kind of public persona of me as Grandpa Rossy, the fun-loving guy, and, I'm grateful for that. But that's anybody who's played with me knows that that's not really my personality in the locker room, and that's what I'm going to bring to this team. And everything, all of the questions that you and I would ask him about, how are you going to navigate being friends with these guys versus, being in charge of the team, like he seems very prepared, and it's not, I don't think he's taking this job or was interested in this job because it was like, oh yeah, this is the logical next step for me. I think he deeply wants it, has had his eye on managing a team for a long time. And I'm excited to see what happens. Now, if the Cubs go 10-20 in April, then we're going to see what that looks like. But I think for the time being, and just thinking about the offseason moves that may happen, I'm as excited as one could be after a disappointing season still in October of the same year.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And it's one of the two managers I would have been excited about them hiring. Espada would have been interesting to me too, and I assume he'll be snapped up by some other team relatively quickly. I'll be interested to see what David Ross does with the coaching staff, because it seems like that was a question they asked about.
Yeah, he kind of skirted around that one.
So it seems like there's going to be changing up there. I hope they keep Hadaby and Iapoce, but other than that, I think it would be good to get someone new in, you know? Like, let's bring in a voice that from another organization, I think, would be helpful.
Yeah, like a Chili Davis type.
Chili Davis type. Yeah, maybe a Ruben Sierra, but not
basically anybody whose first name is also a food item.
Yeah, Biscuit Thomas, come on in. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this up because I gotta go do some things. Thank you guys for listening. We will next week kind of do I assume some more. We'll talk end of the World Series. We'll start getting into more Cubs offseason stuff, the nitty-gritty free agent sort of stuff. We'll start having some guests. We're going to have some fun. You will not stop us from releasing a podcast every week, regardless of how much baseball is happening. Yeah. I'm Adam. He's Kevin. We are at Away Games Pod. Follow us. Check out Drive Fantasy. You got anything else, Kev?
No, that's all.
All right, hell yeah.